Hey my good friend, Sam Haymart with TestDrivenTV. Today our 2022 Ford Maverick XL is in the garage and we are installing the Ford Accessories drop-in bed liner. It's a pretty involved project, but we've got the cameras turned on and we're going to walk you through it step by step. When it comes to bed liners, there are basically two choices for the 2022 Ford Maverick. A spray-ed bed liner either from the factory or aftermarket, or you can choose a hard plastic drop-in style, again, from the factory or aftermarket. As of making this video, only one drop-in bed liner is available for the Ford Maverick, the factory one. Whether you order it from the factory, have your dealer install it, or order it at your dealer parts counter, it's exactly the same bed liner. Having seen the drop-in bed liner at the SEMA show last year, I decided that I liked it better than the spray-in liner, so after the truck arrived last January, I ordered the drop-in bed liner from the local dealership at a cost of about $415. It arrived in a cardboard box about the size of a water heater. Because the bed liner is a modular kit consisting of 5 pieces that are all installed individually instead of a large single tub like most bed liners, it all fit as packaged. After pulling it from the box and taking inventory of the parts kit, I used the included QR code to pull up the installation instructions on my phone. Upon laying out the parts, there were a few more items here than I needed for my own installation, such as a slew of washers and screws, which is always unnerving. But as with all projects like this, read the instructions thoroughly and know what your needs are and are not for your individual installation before you begin. You'll need a variety of tools for the project, including a drill, hole cutter, a jig or hand saw, Torx bits and ratchet, and a good afternoon to spend doing it all. First tasks at hand start with making sure that your cargo box is clean and then removing the various tie downs your truck may have, as well as the cleat rails if you have them. Because we have the base XL, there are only a couple items. Next up is the application of the black tape squares for various locations where your hardware will be reinstalled. This keeps the look finished where the steel bed is exposed, hiding the paint color from showing behind the bed liner holes for a cleaner appearance. The head panel is the first item to go in. You want to clean the steel surface at the top front of the cargo box with alcohol, as the top trim of the head panel has a self-adhesive strip that will need to stick to it. Before you pull the tape and stick it, get the panel slid up underneath the side rails and make sure it all fits together nicely on both sides. The instructions actually tell you to leave pulling off the adhesive tape until the very end, which is what I did and agree with. That way you can move it around and adjust it when you set the sides and floor in. Next up is the floor piece. Because it was rolled up to fit in the box, I laid it out in the sun for a bit to flatten out. It still took some coaxing to get it in and lay flat and slide in under the front lip of the head panel. Relax, in time it will truly lay flat. A side note, if you have the factory tie downs at the front or none at all, there are already holes cut in the floor panel for them. Because I'm installing my own DIY floor tie downs at the front, I pre-cut the holes for them larger to account for the flush mounted flanges. A separate video on these tie downs is linked below in the information section and can be found on our Maverick video playlist. Once the floor is in, then the side panels can be installed. You do have to do some preparation on them first, however. Depending on your level of tie downs and cleats that your truck has, there's a varying level of drilling and cutting that needs to be done. The backs of the panels have molded marks for the holes that need to be cut for various pieces of hardware. Refer to the instructions to determine which cuts you need to make. After the bed liner is in, for instance, I plan on installing my own DIY rail and cleat system, so I'm cutting these holes now. Also needed are cutouts for the side access panels or cubby doors if your truck's equipped. While there are guidelines, you'll want to measure and work it wisely to make sure your own installation works and meets your aesthetic standards. I used a power jigsaw to make the cuts after a pilot hole with the hole cutter. Then I filed the edges to give it a cleaner finished edge. Before installing the side panels, you need to set in place the steel brackets that hold it all together. Steel threaded clips slide onto them for the tap screws, and they can be held in place by the same black tape squares used for the hole locations. Now you can slide the side panels into place. The tops of the panels slip up underneath the top rails, and extra care is required to make sure the ends close to the tailgate seat properly up underneath. It takes a little working, but they do fit well. The lower lip of the side panel snaps in behind the outermost rib of the floor panel. You then finish up by attaching the tap screw to the L bracket at the back of the cargo box to hold it all together tight. The last piece of the puzzle is the tailgate panel. First, you remove the 8 bolts that hold the inner panel on and then set the plastic liner in place over it. Using the included standoff washers, you can then thread the bolts back into place. These standoff washers help support the thickness of the inner panel, while also allowing the bolts to be reinstalled and torqued down without warping or deforming the plastic panel. The instructions ask that they be torqued down in a particular sequence, so I followed orders. The last finishing touches start with pulling the head panel away from the steel slightly to remove the adhesive strip on the top trim, then press it hard against the body for a good bond. I forgot to hit record on my camera for this step, so just try to imagine it. You can then reinstall all of your hardware, cleats, and other items. One side note, at the time of installation I saw that the floor panel was still not lying completely flat at the back, but don't worry much about it. After a couple days in the sun, it lost its wanderlust and is now laying flat. It's all good now. So whether you buy this as a factory option, a dealer option, or install it yourself, this is what it looks like inside and out. The installation with all of my hardware, both factory as well as DIY floor tie downs and cleats, is much to my satisfaction, and this particular accessory has well met my expectations for both quality and design. Woohoo! Well, there you go. That was a pretty involved project. It did take me a good day to do this, in addition to some of the other little parts and pieces that I also did. This is part of an entire makeover project for the cargo box. We did outlets, we did floor cleats, and we did a rail and cleat system on the sides, in addition to the bedliner. You can see all of that DIY videos for each of those things on our playlist right there. Better yet, subscribe to our YouTube channel right there. Either way, stay tuned.